You are listening to The Vocal Technologist. Spoken tech for your ears.
Welcome back to another edition of Product Thursdays here on The Vocal Technologist. I was just staring at my calendar before we hit record, and I had this kind of terrifying realization.
Oh, yeah.
The world of product management, it moves so fast that I'm pretty sure in the time it takes me to finish this sentence, someone has already invented a new framework.
Right.
And then deprecated an old one and, written a viral LinkedIn piece about why we're all doing it wrong.
You're probably not wrong about that. It really feels like the refresh rate on best practices is at an all-time high.
It is.
I mean, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
Just trying to keep your browser tabs organized, let alone your actual strategy.
It really is. And looking at the stuff we pulled together for today, I'm seeing a really distinct theme emerging. It feels like we are caught in this massive tension right now. On one side, you've got all the shiny new toys, AI, automation, these wild new concepts like Vibecoding.
Yeah, all the buzzwords.
And on the other side, you have the timeless, kind of unsexy fundamentals, human judgment, basic math, and company culture.
That is exactly the friction point we need to dig into. We're seeing this massive push for speed and for new tools, but a lot of what we're looking at today it's flashing a giant warning sign.
What's the warning?
It's basically saying that without the fundamentals, without things like taste and actual financial ROI, those shiny tools are just going to help us make bad decisions much, much faster.
Which is a terrifying thought. Nobody wants to speedrun a bad decision.
No.
And speaking of shiny new tools, we have to talk about the buzzword of the week. Actually, maybe the buzzword of the year, Vibecoding.
Ah, yes. Vibecoding, it's everywhere.
I feel like I can't open a tab without seeing this word, but for, anyone who might have been offline or just heads down in Jira for the last 48 hours, how are we actually defining this?
Yeah.
Is it just coding with vibes? Because that sounds like something I'd do after maybe 3 espressos.
It's actually a pretty fascinating shift. Vibecoding basically refers to using natural language and AI to build software based on the feel or the intent, rather than rigorous syntax.
So you're just talking to the computer.
Yeah, it's an executive or a PM describing what they want to an LLM, iterating on the output in real time, and then shipping it. It's coding by conversation.
You're not writing Python, you're just vibing with the model until the app works.
Exactly.
And the signals we're getting on this are wildly conflicting. We have one writer telling us every executive needs to be vibe coding right now to cut through all the bureaucracy.
Right.
And then almost in the same breath, another perspective is saying vibe coding is already ending and we need to get back to real strategy. So which is it? Are we coding based on vibes or are we building strategy?
That is the paradox we're going to try and unravel today. Because it's not really about writing the code, it's about how the role of the product manager and the executive is fundamentally shifting from doing to orchestrating.
Okay, let's unpack this because we've got a lot to get through. We're going to look at whether all this AI stuff is actually useful or if it's just something called AI theater.
Yeah.
We're going to look at the brutal math of product ROI, specifically a 6x ratio that might scare some people. And we're going to talk about why taste might be the only thing stopping us from ruining everything.
It's going to be a heavy one, but a necessary one.
Let's start with the theater. I loved this phrase from one of the pieces we read. AI theater. It sounds like a bad off-Broadway show where the actors are just robots bumping into walls. What exactly creates this theater?
It's what happens when the ambition stops at the demo.
Okay.
You see this constantly in enterprise right now. A company spins up an AI initiative, they get a really cool prototype working, maybe a chat bot that answers 3 questions perfectly.
Everyone claps.
Everyone claps, the CEO gets excited, and they declare they are AI first. But they haven't actually figured out the hard part.
Which is what?
The ownership and the integration. The argument here is that real value only comes from clear outcomes and responsibility after the AI touches the product.
So it's not enough to have the cool demo.
Not at all. If you just have a cool demo, but no one owns the ongoing output, like who checks for hallucinations, who maintains the context window, who ensures it doesn't say something offensive.
Right, that's just performance art.
Exactly. It's not a product.
It's like, look, it generates text. Great. Who is checking if that text is true? Who's checking if it's actually helpful to the customer?
Precisely. And that leads us to what was described as AI's missing ingredient. We all assume speed is the winner. AI makes us faster, so we win.
Sure.
But the counterargument is that speed isn't enough. The barrier to entry for just content has dropped to zero. You can generate infinite content now.
So what's the differentiator?
The companies that actually succeed will be the ones using design to turn that raw capability into something humans can actually process.
This is the whole generated UI discussion, right? The idea that AI builds the interface on the fly.
Yes. Think about it. You can use AI to generate a user interface instantly. But if that interface doesn't respect your brand or your data hierarchy or the user's actual problem,
It's just pretty visual clutter.
it's useless.
So design is the filter.
Design is the translator. It turns capability into utility. Without that design layer, AI is just a fire hose of information. You wouldn't drink from a fire hose. You want a glass of water. Design is the glass.
Okay, so if design is the glass, let's go back to vibe coding. Because the pro argument here is fascinating. One of the articles argues that executives should be vibe coding.
Right, literally building with the AI tools themselves.
Why? To get closer to the work.
The argument is about removing layers. We've all been in that situation. A leader has an idea, they tell a VP, who tells a director, who writes a brief for a PM, who tickets it for an engineer.
It's a game of telephone.
It is. The pro vibe coding stance is, if a reader can prototype their own idea in 20 minutes with an LLM, they don't have to play that game, they could just show the thing.
It aligns teams faster because the leader can show, not just tell. It's build this, but better.
Precisely. It collapses the distance between idea and artifact.
Which sounds great in theory. But then we have the counter-argument. The piece that says vibe coding is ending suggests that product work is actually becoming more strategic, not more hands-on.
This is that shift from doing to orchestrating, and I think this is where the industry is actually heading. The idea here is that we are moving toward multi-agent systems.
Multi-agent systems.
Yeah, so instead of a product manager sitting there trying to write Python with an LLM, they should be orchestrating a whole system of specialized AI agents.
So the PM becomes the conductor of an orchestra.
Or the general contractor.
Yeah.
You have an agent that validates ideas, an agent that writes tests, an agent that ships features. The scaling mechanism for a PM isn't work longer hours anymore.
It's make better decisions.
It's make better decisions. If you have agents that can execute the work, your value is defining what work should be done.
And speaking of agents doing the work, I found this one tactical tip absolutely brilliant. I want to highlight this for everyone listening because it's something you could try tomorrow.
Oh, I love that part.
Using coding agents as your first-time user testers.
That was a real light bulb moment for me.
It makes so much sense. I mean, if you unleash an AI agent on your interface to try and complete a task, it doesn't have common sense. It doesn't have 10 years of iPhone muscle memory.
Right. It doesn't know that the little hamburger menu implies settings unless you explicitly labeled it well. It doesn't know that swiping left usually means delete.
Exactly. So if your interface relies on all these hidden assumptions, the agent will just fail.
It's the ultimate stress test for usability. Humans cover for bad design because we're smart and adaptable. We figure it out. An agent is ruthless. If the button isn't labeled clearly, it gets stuck. It exposes the flaws in your logic immediately.
I love that. It's like hiring the world's most literal intern to test your app, but they work for free and run instantly.
And that's a perfect example of using AI for actual utility, improving the product rather than just theater.
So if we're moving toward this world where we are orchestrating and making decisions, we better be making the right financial decisions because all these agents and API calls, they cost money.
They do.
One of the pieces we read brought up the business of product, and it dropped a very specific number on us about ROI.
The 5 to 6x ratio.
Yeah. Let's talk about that because I feel like a lot of product teams, they kind of shy away from the math. They like to talk about engagement and delight and user journeys.
They do, but they really can't afford to anymore. The logic here was stated very clearly. A product needs to earn roughly 5 to 6 times the cost of the maker team, the engineers, designers, PMs, just to justify the investment.
That's a high bar. I mean, if you have a team of 5 people and let's say with salaries and benefits, that's $1 million a year. You need to be bringing in 5 or 6 million.
Correct. And people choke on that number. But you have to factor in overhead, sales, marketing, real estate. And this is the crucial part, the risk. Most products fail.
So the winners have to pay for all the losers.
They do. It's the anchor for any strategic conversation with a CEO. If you can't show a path to that 5x or 6x return, you're basically running a charity project inside a for-profit company.
And importantly, this ROI matters at the product level, not just the feature level.
Right. You can't just say, this button makes us $100. The whole product line has to pull its weight. It forces you to think about the business model, not just the user story.
But making those calls requires actual expertise. And this is where we get into my favorite bit of humor from the readings today, the whole "it depends" track.
Yeah, the classic UX strategist defense. Should we do A or B?
Well, it depends.
I laughed out loud at this. The article claims that saying "it depends" is often just a disguise for expertise when really you're just avoiding a decision. It cuts deep because it's true. We're often taught that nuance is intelligence, that spotting all the edge cases makes you smart. But in a business context, if you always say "it depends," you're just slowing the team down.
You're a bottleneck.
You are. You become a bottleneck of indecision.
So true expertise isn't listing all the variables. It's making the call despite them.
Real expertise is saying it depends on X, Y, and Z. But given our situation, we are doing X. You have to commit. You have to take a stance.
And that commitment leads us to why strategies fail in the first place. One of our writers argues it's not the solution that's the problem, it's the problem framing.
This is the real moat against AI. And AI can solve a problem once you state it clearly. It can write the SQL query, it can generate the UI code, but AI cannot frame the problem for you. Strategy fails when teams skip problem design and they rush straight to solutions. They measure success by usage. Did people click it? Instead of value, did it solve the problem?
And that collaborative problem framing, that's something you have to do with other humans. You have to get in a room and agree on what reality looks like.
It creates a shared understanding. That is the one thing you absolutely cannot automate. If the team doesn't agree on the problem, the best AI-generated code in the world won't save you.
You're just building the wrong thing faster.
Exactly.
There was also a note here about the Uncle Rico tragedy, the idea that a great idea is somehow enough.
The tragedy of the great idea that goes nowhere.
Yeah. It's harsh, but it's true. We all know that one PM who talks about the feature they almost built 3 years ago, that would have been huge.
Right. In a market amplified by AI, ideas are cheap. They're commoditized. Everyone has ideas. And everyone can now build a prototype of that idea in 10 minutes with Claude or GPT.
So you don't win by insisting your idea is special.
You win by selling concrete results and reducing risk. Uncle Rico is the guy living in the past glory of what could have been. You don't want to be that PM.
You want to be the one who shipped.
Correct.
Yeah.
Execution is still the currency, but it's execution toward a clearly framed problem.
Okay, this conversation about shipping high-pressure 6x returns, it leads us into the darker side of things, the human element. We had a really compelling and honestly a slightly heavy read titled My Time at Amazon.
This was a sobering reflection. It stopped me in my tracks.
It did. The author talks about how big tech turns ambition into this constant state of striving that basically never satisfies you.
Right.
You get the promotion, you get the status, and it feels validating for a minute, but the cost to your identity, your family, your peace of mind, it just becomes impossible to ignore.
It highlights a massive disconnect. We build these products to solve problems for users, to make their lives easier, but the culture building them is often creating problems for the people inside. It's a machine that runs on human burnout.
Yeah.
It frames growth as the only metric that matters, even for your own soul.
And in that environment, where you have infinite speed and infinite pressure, what becomes the most valuable skill? One of our readings argues it's not execution anymore, it's taste.
This is a profound shift. Late in a career, execution isn't the constraint. You know how to do things. The constraint is judgment. And the definition of taste here isn't just spotting flaws or liking pretty things. It's the restraint of power.
The restraint of power, that's an interesting way to put it.
Think about it. With AI, you can spam every user with personalized emails. You can generate 1,000 landing pages for SEO spam. You can ship code every single minute. Taste is the ability to say, just because we can doesn't mean we should.
It's the editor.
It is the only defense against incentives that reward speed over coherence. If you don't have taste, you just become a content farm. You flood your users with noise because it's easy.
That connects perfectly to the culture piece, because you can't just write a memo saying everyone have better taste now, or everyone change the culture to be less burnout focused.
Right. Culture isn't a document. You can't put a Jira ticket in to get a new culture.
I loved the analogy used here about the Barcelona meal schedule.
This was brilliant. It explains so much about why agile transformations fail.
So for the listeners, the author talks about trying to adapt to eating dinner at 10 p.m. in Barcelona. You can't just decide to do it. If you try to do it without the context, without the siesta, the late sunset, the whole social rhythm, you're just starving and miserable at 7 o'clock.
Exactly. And the point is that corporate culture changes fail for the same reason. You can't just tell people to be more innovative or act like a startup. Beliefs require lived experience. You need the context.
So you have to change the environment first.
You have to change the daily rhythm, the incentives, the lived experience of the team. Otherwise, you're just putting up a poster.
You're just trying to eat dinner at 10 p.m. in Ohio and wondering why you're grumpy.
Precisely. And this is why frameworks often fail. The argument is that great products come from small, empowered teams, not from rigid processes. Frameworks matter less than disciplined sense-making.
Disciplined sense-making. I like that. It sounds a lot better than Scrum rituals.
It's about shared accountability. It's a small group of people looking at reality and deciding what to do, rather than looking at a rule book.
Let's look at some examples of people actually getting this right, because we've been pretty critical. We had a shout out to an app called Finch.
Yes, Finch is a great example of product mechanics meeting human needs. It's a self-care app. You take care of a digital pet by taking care of yourself.
Right.
But its success comes from designing onboarding around fast engagement and habit formation. They remove the friction to guide users to an early payoff. They understand the psychology, not just the code.
And then on the flip side, we have the opposite of that user-centric approach. We have, well, I'm going to say it, enshittification.
We're seeing that word everywhere, too.
We are. It's usually used to describe how platforms get worse over time. More ads, worse search results, just to squeeze out a little more profit. But one of the pieces had an optimistic take on this.
They did. They argued that enshittification isn't inevitable. It happens when trust stops being protected. They use Tailscale as the counterexample.
Tailscale, the VPN service.
Yeah. Tailscale offers a very generous free tier for personal users. A lot of companies, especially finance-driven ones, would see that as a loss leader or a drain on resources.
Why are we supporting these free users?
Right. But the argument here is that keeping those personal users happy is actually the engine of their enterprise growth.
Because those personal users are the ones who go into work and say, hey, the VPN sucks here, we should use Tailscale.
Exactly. Trust isn't a cost, it's an asset. It's a long-term investment. If you protect that trust, you don't have to enshittify your product to make money. You monetize the value you created, not the users you trapped.
That is a hopeful message. Trust as an asset. But before we get too starry-eyed, we need a reality check on the enterprise side.
Yes.
We talked about AI writing code, but there was a very specific warning about LLMs and enterprise software.
Yes. The headline was basically, LLMs speed up code, not enterprise complexity.
Oof, that hits hard for anyone working in a Fortune 500.
It's the brutal truth. You can write a SQL query faster with AI. You can generate the Python script in seconds. But AI cannot navigate the procurement process. It cannot decode the legacy database structure that was built in 1998 and no one understands.
Right.
It cannot resolve the political infighting between the sales and engineering departments.
The complexity isn't in the syntax, it's in the structure.
That complexity is human and structural. AI doesn't solve that. So while your coding time goes down, your time to value might stay exactly the same because the organizational friction is the real bottleneck.
The robot can run fast, but it's running into a wall of bureaucracy.
That's the perfect way to put it.
So we're back to the beginning. The tools change, the frameworks change, but the messiness of people and organizations, that remains the constant.
That's the core truth.
So what does this all mean? If we zoom out, we've gone from Vibecoding execs to the ROI of 6x to the philosophy of taste. What is the through line here?
I think the synthesis is pretty clear. Whether you are vibe coding or framing problems, the job of a product person is shifting.
How so?
It is shifting from writing the ticket, moving the pixels, writing the code, to deciding.
The orchestrator.
The orchestrator, the editor, the person with the taste. The AI can provide the options, the AI can provide the speed, but the human has to provide the why. And just as importantly, the no.
That's a powerful place to land. It makes the job sound harder.
It is harder. It requires more judgment. It requires you to be more human, not more machine-like.
Well, on that note, here's a thought I want to leave you with today. We talked about how AI agents can now do the coding. We talked about how they can even do the user testing. And we agreed that taste is the only defense we have against bad incentives and endless generated noise. So look at your calendar for next week. Look at your to-do list. Are you cultivating your taste? Or are you just trying to improve your speed? Because if the robot is already faster than you, Speed isn't your competitive advantage anymore.
That's the question.
Thanks for diving in with us. This has been The Vocal Technologist. Go build something that matters. We'll see you next Thursday.
Spoken Tech for your ears.